Number 1. T-33 Flamethrower Tank. The T-33 was an ambitious American project aimed at creating the most advanced flamethrower tank during World War II. Drawing from the US military's successful use of flamethrower tanks in the Pacific Theater, where they were particularly effective against well-defended Japanese positions, the T-33 was designed to take this concept even further by integrating flamethrowers into the M4A3E2 Sherman jumbo chassis. The T-33 took things a step further by integrating the flamethrower directly into the main turret. The project began with the idea of mounting a flamethrower coaxially with the main gun, giving the tank the ability to fire both high-explosive rounds and streams of flame in rapid succession. This innovation required serious modifications to the Sherman, resulting in what was considered the most advanced flamethrower tank design of the war. The tank's turret was completely redesigned to accommodate the E-20 flamethrower, which was mounted coaxially alongside the M675mm gun. In addition to the coaxial E-20 flamethrower, the T-33 was also equipped with a hull-mounted E-12R4 flamethrower, making it capable of creating sustained fire coverage across a wide area. However, the war in Europe ended before the T-33 could be mass-produced. Although it didn't enter mass production, its design and the coaxial E-20 flamethrower were not entirely forgotten. This flamethrower was later used on 105mm howitzer Shermans during the Korean War, where it proved quite effective. In addition, two of the original T-33 pilot vehicles were converted into T-68 self-propelled flamethrower tanks in 1953, removing the turret entirely, leaving just a cupola on top and turning the vehicle into a dedicated flamethrower platform. Number 2. T-31 Demolition Tank. The T-31 demolition tank, developed by the US Army in the final stages of World War II, was one of the last attempts to create a specialized engineering tank designed for destroying fortifications. This tank was meant to take on the role of a heavily armed demolition vehicle, combining multiple weapons systems for maximum destructive capability. The tank was based on the chassis of the M4A3 Sherman with several enhancements in armor. The T-31 was equipped with a bulldozer blade and a mine-clearing device, allowing it to break through obstacles and clear the way for advancing troops. However, its primary function was destruction, and for that, it had some of the most unusual and powerful weaponry mounted on any Sherman tank. The main turret was a large rectangular structure with 2-inch armor on the front and sides. At first glance, the turret looked like it housed a large cannon, but instead, the front of the turret was fitted with a fake 105mm howitzer barrel. This was purely cosmetic, meant to give the tank the appearance of being heavily armed when its real power came from its rocket launchers. Mounted on either side of the turret were 2 cylindrical launch systems, each equipped with T-94 rocket launchers capable of firing 7-inch rockets stored in revolving drum magazines inside the turrets. Each drum held 5 rockets, and the tank had a total ammunition capacity of 30 rockets. The crew could reload the rocket drums from inside the tank, though the process was complicated and required the loader to open a side hatch. For additional firepower, the T-31 also came with a flamethrower, which was installed in place of the tank's upper machine gun and could project streams of fire with up to 50 gallons, 190 liters, of flammable liquid. It also had 2 Browning M1919 machine guns mounted on the turret's front in ball mounts, while a M250 caliber machine gun was placed near the commander's cupola. Despite its impressive firepower on paper, the T-31 was riddled with problems. During trials, the T-31 encountered numerous technical issues, especially with its rocket system. The drum mechanisms used to load the rockets frequently malfunctioned under the strain of battlefield conditions. While they tried to fix the problems, it was already the end of the war, and it never saw mass production, with only 4 prototypes ever built. Number 3. T-10 Mine Exploder. This was one of the most unusual attempts to turn the versatile Sherman tank into a mine-clearing vehicle. The US Army, inspired by the success of the British flail tanks, sought a more efficient solution for clearing mines. Instead of using chains spinning at high speeds to strike the ground, the T-10 employed heavy steel rollers mounted on the front of a Sherman tank chassis. The idea was simple: the rollers would compress the ground, triggering any mines before the tank itself could be damaged by the explosions. To accommodate the rollers, the armor above the tracks was removed, and the T-10 was fitted with 3 massive steel rollers. 2 rollers, each 8 feet wide, were mounted at the front, with a third roller placed in between them to cover the gap, giving the tank a total mine-clearing width of nearly 13 feet. The Sherman's belly armor was also reinforced, doubling it to 1 inch thick, to protect the crew from any mines that might still explode near the tank's undercarriage. However, the testing phase revealed serious flaws in the design. The T-10 weighed in at nearly 60 tons due to the heavy rollers, which made it prone to getting stuck in mud and soft terrain. The rollers frequently became clogged with dirt, severely reducing the vehicle's mobility. Attempts to solve this issue by attaching scrapers behind the rollers to clear away the mud were unsuccessful. The tank's massive weight and slow speed meant that it often became bogged down, requiring other tanks to pull it out of difficult terrain. Despite its impressive ability to clear mines, its operational problems meant it was simply not practical for combat use. The T-10 never saw action on the battlefield and was scrapped after testing. The British flail tanks, by comparison, were much more successful and favoured by troops. Number 4. Skink anti-aircraft tank. This modified version of the M4A1 Sherman was a Canadian experiment, armed with 4 20mm cannons and designed to deal with enemy aircraft. The idea for the Skink came from the need to provide mobile anti-aircraft support to advancing Allied forces. The Western Allies had observed the effectiveness of German Flakpanzer tanks, and the Skink was intended to provide similar support by protecting Allied units from low-flying enemy aircraft. The M4A1 Sherman chassis was chosen as the base, and the turret was modified to hold 4 20mm Hispano-Suiza cannons, commonly used in aircraft for their high rate of fire. However, as the tank rolled out in 1944, the skies over Europe were mostly clear of enemy aircraft. The Luftwaffe was now a shadow of its former self, and the Skink's anti-aircraft capabilities were no longer needed. So, the few Skinks built were used for direct infantry support, where they proved to be terrifying with their firepower. The sound of all 4 20mm cannons firing simultaneously was devastating for troops on the receiving end. The combination of the M4A1 Sherman chassis and the quad 20mm guns was unusual but quite effective. Number 5. Sherman Calliope. One of the unusual versions of the Sherman that surprised the Axis armies with its unexpected firepower. Developed as a mobile rocket launcher, this variant of the Sherman was designed to deliver a devastating barrage of rockets. It was equipped with a T-34 rocket launcher system mounted on the turret of a standard M4 Sherman tank. This system carried 60 launch tubes, each capable of firing 4.5-inch rockets. These rockets could be fired singly, in groups of 6, or in a continuous stream, unleashing all 60 rockets in one devastating volley. It was said that one such tank had the firing power equivalent to 15 howitzer batteries, but only for a short time. The sheer volume of rockets fired in rapid succession made it perfect for suppressing enemy defenses, though the rockets were not particularly accurate. However, they made up for this lack of precision with sheer numbers. Unlike towed rocket launchers or fixed artillery pieces, the Sherman Calliope could move quickly across the battlefield, bringing its firepower exactly where it was needed. In combat, the Calliope was a terrifying weapon, especially during offensive operations. The sound of the rockets firing and the visual spectacle of the barrage had a devastating psychological effect on enemy troops. The Calliope saw action primarily on the Western Front and was particularly effective in clearing out enemy positions, such as bunkers and fortified strongholds. In terms of effectiveness, the Sherman Calliope proved to be a useful, if somewhat limited, tool. Its rockets were excellent for softening up enemy positions before an attack, but once the rockets were fired, the Calliope became a standard Sherman tank, though burdened by the heavy and awkward launcher system on top of its turret. Reloading the rockets was time-consuming and had to be done in the rear, away from the front lines, which meant that after firing a full barrage, the Calliope was out of action for a while. Nevertheless, its ability to deliver massive firepower in a short period gave the Allies a crucial advantage in key moments of battle.